guys, Justin here. So I'm about to go pick up my boy. We're going to go to the comic fair over in Huntington Beach and Main Street. Stay tuned while I go pick up my boy. Alright, just pulled up at my boy's house, Rube Tube, Douche Nozzle 3007. Alright, let's go get him. You better hurry up. There he is!
What's up?
Man, the myth, the legend! Alright, me and my boy Rube better go hit the comic fair, not the dog fair.
Not the dog fair? No one likes the dog fair?
Hey, piss off.
Piss off, eh? Hope you're watching this, Seth?
Yeah. You better be.
Yeah.
Alright,
Like, subscribe.
let's do this!
What we do today is put these guys to work. What's going to happen is that we're going to have a little thing called In the Hot Seat with Hill, where while I'm interviewing one of them with 15 quick questions, the other two are going to be drawing the guy in the hot seat. So, 15 questions. So I first want to just say that baby blues began in 1990, about the time that babies were invented.
Oh, perfect.
And Zits began in 1997, so that's 22 years ago. So this has been quite an amazing run for both of these strips. And one of the things that we're going to talk about today is how kind of the many ways to solve a problem, the many ways to collaborate. And what I love about these two features is that within these three different creators, they have found different ways as in their features to come together and create these fantastic scripts. Now,
outside Phoenix, Arizona.
where did you grow up?
All over the place. My dad, I was an Air Force brat, so I went to 10 schools in 12 years.
Okay, name the first 5.
I don't remember the names of the schools. Let's see, Alaska, Colorado, Alaska again, Arlington, Virginia, England, Louisiana, Phoenix.
Wow, great. Okay, so what did you study in college?
I studied advertising art.
Advertising. Okay. And where are you in the birth order of your family?
First and last.
Personally, how did you and Jerry meet?
Our wives used to work together, and I think they probably complained at lunch about their stupid husbands who drew cartoons all day, and decided that we ought to meet each other.
Very cool. And how old were you?
22 maybe?
22.
Yeah, 22, 23.
Excellent. And how many kids do you have? Not you and Jerry, but you and your wife Suki.
2.
2. How many cats do you have?
9.
Name them.
Chin, Smudge, Franklin, Freddie, Sally, Harry. It'd be Harry and Sally. George, Chuck. I'm trying to think if I missed any.
You can lie and they won't know. All right, are you allergic to cats?
Yes, very.
How many dogs do you have?
3.
Name them.
Augie, Joe, and Bear.
Are you allergic to dogs?
Yes, very.
What cartoon did you practice copying when you were a kid?
I was copying a lot of comics. Peanuts a lot. Pogo, a lot of Mad Magazine, New Yorker, BC.
That's one of my favorites. And did you have a favorite cartoon to read as a kid?
Peanuts.
Peanuts, okay.
Sure.
Okay. You consider yourself an introvert or an extrovert?
Definitely introvert.
Definitely. Are you an early bird or a night owl?
Night owl.
Okay, and what do you listen
I'm
to?
actually an early bird cracked in a night owl's body.
That's called aging. And what do you listen to while you ink your strip?
Well, I'll listen either to music or NPR.
All right, you're out. Let's see what they've done to you. All right, so you can take Jim's chair, and it's time for payback. Jim, where do you live now? Where do you live now?
Boulder, Colorado.
Where did you grow up?
Cincinnati, Ohio.
What did you study in college?
I studied art. I wanted to be a poor writer, and that didn't work out. So I became an artist.
Good plan. Where are you in the birth order of your family?
I am third. I have 2 older sisters and a younger brother.
Where did you and Jerry meet?
We met on an airplane in the Atlanta airport. We were both heading to the same place. We found ourselves on the same plane, and the plane blew a tire before taking off. And so we had a 2-hour delay during which we sat beside each other and got to know each other. And that's the beginning of all this.
And how long ago was it?
That's like 1995, maybe? Something like that. Yeah.
How many kids do you have? Not you and Jerry, but you and Susanna. How many kids?
How many kids? Between us, we have 5 kids. So when Susanna and I got married, I had 2 teenagers and she had 3 teenagers. And so we suddenly found ourselves in a house with 5 teenagers under our roof. And I just parked my drawing board in the middle of the family room, listened, and I was like an embedded cartoonist. I would send Jerry my notes from the field, and then he would send back zits.
Can you name them?
My kids?
Yeah.
George, Fuzzy, Cuddly, what were they? No. My 2 are Dylan and Chelsea, and Sarah, Cody, and Jake.
Any allergies to kids?
Yeah. But they're out of the house now, so we vacuum well, and it keeps it at bay.
Roombas are important. So how old were you when you dog sledded across Alaska?
I was about 38 years old, I think. I met Susan Butcher, who was an Iditarod winner, multi-Iditarod, at a conference once. And she said, you ever get some time off, come up to Alaska, we'll put you on the back of a dog sled. So I had some time off in 1993, and I called her, and she said, yeah, we'll meet you in Barrow. If you've ever looked at a map of Alaska, it's the tippy top point of Alaska. And so, believe it or not, I learned to dog sled in about an hour, and we drove separate dog sleds, she and her husband and me and another musher, across the northern coast of Alaska to Prudhoe Bay.
Okay, so what cartoon did you practice copying when you were a kid?
Popeye, for sure.
And what was your favorite cartoon to read when you were a kid?
Well, I like Pogo. Does anybody remember Pogo?
Woo!
Yeah, it was very lush. I always liked lush drawing. And it was full of this kind of fantastical speaking that I didn't understand. All the creatures talked with their own dialects and stuff. And so I didn't understand it for about the first 5 years I read it. I just loved how it looked.
And where do you keep your Pulitzer Prize? Yeah.
Where do I keep my Pulitzer Prize? In the bathroom, where all cartoon treasures are found.
What do you listen to when you ink your strip?
I listen to Cincinnati Reds baseball games most of the time. Podcasts, I listen to Jason Chatfield's podcast, and Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend, and other podcasts, and then sometimes Bruce Springsteen if I need it.
Excellent, excellent. And do you consider yourself to be an extrovert or an introvert?
Deep introvert.
And
Have you asked any cartoonist who said extrovert?
hello. And are you an early bird or a night owl?
I'm a night owl in remission.
Okay. All right. Thanks for your time in the hot seat. See what they've done to you. We're good. What number SPF do you have on right now?
I start with a 40 and then I work up as the sun comes out.
I call that first layer the gesso layer.
Yeah.
Okay, so where do you live now?
I live in San Luis Obispo, California.
Oh, not far away. And where did you grow up?
I grew up in, South Bend, Indiana, until I turned about 13, and then moved to Lake Havasu, Arizona.
Okay. And what did you study in college?
I studied advertising design, but I will mention that a lot of people will spend up to 4 years or more in college. I got finished in a year. Turns out you don't have to go back.
You were that smart.
Yeah.
You finished in a year.
Wow.
So where are you in the birth order of your family?
I'm the middle child.
Of?
2 sisters. We're all 3 years apart.
Oh, okay. How many kids do you have?
I have 2 daughters.
2 daughters. And at one point you lived on a cattle ranch. How many cows did you have?
Well, you never ask a man how many cows he has. They weren't really my cows. We had a cattle guy who did that, but truthfully, around 300.
Can you name them?
I can paint them.
What cartoon did you practice copying when you were a kid?
Snoopy and Woodstock.
They're so hard to do. Okay, what was your favorite cartoon to read as a kid?
Well, I liked all the easy ones. I think I actually like to read Nancy. I like to read a strip that no one can remember called Grandma. There was only one joke in it, but that was my style. And of course, Peanuts. I love to read Peanuts and the funny Bigfooty ones, Beetle Bailey.
How many years did you draw and write the comic strip Nancy for newspapers?
12 years.
What was the first record you ever owned?
I had a girlfriend in the 8th grade, and I agonized over a Christmas gift for her for months, and finally picked the most beautiful $30 necklace that they had at Kresge's, and called her, and I said, I want to bring a Christmas gift over for you. And I think what happened in the interim, that 15 minutes, is that she and her mother panicked because she had no thought of buying me a gift at all. So I think they wrapped up a record album of The Association, because there was no plastic on it on the outside. The Association.
Do you consider yourself to be an introvert or an extrovert?
I'm an introvert.
Early bird or night owl?
Early bird.
Early bird. All right, Jerry. Thank you for being in the hot seat. Let's see what they've done for
Thank
you.
you for me.
Round of applause for Jerry, please. That's a very abstract one there, Rick. So
So when I was a kid, my dad was a sign painter, and so he did the painting signs on the sides of buildings, you know, Dunkin' Donuts or Cooler or whatever it might say. But the main thing he did was work in a truck painting factory, and he would paint, you know, those giant beverage trucks like Budweiser, Coca-Cola come rumbling down PCH right while we're talking, I think mostly, and during the summers and vacation days and things like that, I would work with him in that shop. And so this was me kind of in those days learning to paint and decal these giant Budweiser trucks. And so the interesting thing was that we'll pretty much do the same thing, except on a much smaller scale. So my world is now this big. It used to be up 20 feet in the air on the ladder.
Well, as you can see, this really has nothing to do with cartooning, except the flies that I got from Ad Magazine. But that was my least helpful job, which was cleaning up any mess at the department store that I worked at, which was pretty gross, and it was hot. And then I had to go out in about 110, 15 degrees heat and pick up all the carts in the parking lot. And that was before they had the motorized things, you know, attach the carts to bring it back to the store.
What were your other lousy jobs?
I worked for a menu company. Wait, I wouldn't say it was a lousy job, but Jerry and I both worked at a company doing yellow page ads, which was actually helpful in that I learned how to make double stroke type lettering, which comes in handy when you're doing cartoons.
Thank you. Let's get Jerry up.
All right, so
Can
I'm
you
going
switch it over, please, to the document camera?
to talk and draw. Yeah, 1997. Rick and I were asked to do a television show based on the Baby Blues comic strip, and we split up our talents as best we could. Where Rick worked with the animators and I worked with the writing staff. And so, so I was thrown into, you know, what's called a writer's room. And if you've ever, like, you know, watched Wild Kingdom or something like that, where the hippopotamuses tear apart the alligators, it's like that, but with jokes. And my job as an unpaid writer for the Baby Blues show was to survive as long as I could. So the first year in a writer's room, I kept my mouth shut, and because the jokes were like live rounds firing over my head, and I could not keep up with the references or the speed or the humor. These guys were great. And so I was, with that job, sort of considered myself kind of a deer in the headlights for about a year. After a year, I got the hang of it, and I actually contributed some jokes to the show, and I wrote a script, and it was a fantastic experience in making me a better writer, and able to I don't know, come up with a punchline when there isn't one. When you watch television and you see a comedy, pay attention to the credits, the writer staffs. These are the smartest people in the world. They're wonderful. But that's me.
All right, thank you.
I know.
always curious about what are the secret tools that the different cartoonists use. And what's really neat is that these guys work very differently from one another. So what I thought I would do is I would have who are we starting with? Rick. We're gonna have Rick talk about the materials that he uses to create Baby Blues. So Rick, take it away.
Well, I started Baby Blues using colored pencil because I was a freelance illustrator doing humorous illustrations for ads and things like that. And my style involved using colored pencils, so that was the most comfortable thing for me. So I just continued on using colored pencil. And years later, I realized I paid a heavy price for it because it was extremely hard on my hands. And sometimes I would, have to ice my hands after working because of the pressure you have to use to get a line out of the pencil dark enough, and also just the grip of it all the time. So about 5 years later, I looked into doing it digitally, and Hillary actually is the one who got me into it.
Your desk looks the same, still a mess.
What's that?
Your desk looks the same, it's still a mess as when you're using paper.
Oh, I wasn't watching what was up there. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's still just as messy, just a bunch of different junk on it now. So that's, right now I use a Mobile Studio Pro. So that works a lot better, it's a lot less pressure on my hands and everything else. So, and it eliminated the need for a scanner. I don't have a photocopier in my office anymore. So I freed up some space to put a roll-top desk in the place of the photocopier. And I don't know, it works out pretty well. It eliminates a lot of steps because I used to have a very convoluted process which involved doing roughs on tracing paper, then photocopying them, putting them on a light box, tracing them on the illustration board that I used. Then I had to scan them, or photocopy them again, scan them, clean up all the little flecks from the colored pencils, which just took forever. So this is a much more streamlined process.
All right. So take it away, Jim.
So I think I draw the way, Benjamin Franklin would have drawn. I take out a piece of paper and I draw off the size of the rectangle we're allowed to use in the newspaper, and then pencil it with good old-fashioned pencils, and then ink over those lines using a brush. Maybe that's the only surprising part of this for some people. I don't use pens, the kind of crow quill pens that most people imagine older cartoonists using. I use a very fine tip brush called a Winsor & Newton Series 7 No. 3 red sable brush. Comes to a beautiful fine point. You can't believe how fine that point is. And just sit there and draw with that. Interestingly, Kim Scott asked me the other day to send her a video of myself drawing. So I propped up the iPhone in front of me and hit, play, and then began. And I realized about 15 seconds later, it still looked like a still photo, because I draw very deliberately and slowly, and about this far from the paper, and it develops very slowly. It takes me a long time to draw, but I enjoy the act of drawing, and I'm not in any hurry. I've heard other cartoonists who do a couple of strips and stuff. I totally understand why they would need to work with tools that allow them to move faster, but that's not my life. I have plenty of time to work on zits, and so that's the way I do it. And the drawings develop over, the course of an hour or two, and then I use good old-fashioned whiteout to cover my mistakes, and then I scan that all into a computer and color it on the computer. But I don't have a font for my lettering. I letter everything the way you would just write a letter to somebody. And so there's like very little magic involved.
Excellent, excellent. I love how differently both of you solve the problems. And Jerry, why don't we go on to you and talk about how your tools.
Right. So I'm primarily the writer of the two strips. I do pencil sketches for Zitz, and I write a script for Rick. So I really my main tool is my couch in this studio. It's critical. This model is only a few years old, so I'm going to get a lot more naps out of it. But it's that, and then I just finished building a new studio, so that's what it looks like on the inside. I'm a painter also, and that's so the couch. I don't know. I keep moving stuff around, but that's a shot of the studio. That's a shot of the big door to the outside. So yeah, that's what I do. And don't try this at home. This is a very high level of messing up paper. This is how I start mainly thinking of ideas when I'm under the gun to write stuff, and they take all sorts of little runs. So this one, if you look at in the middle, you'll see it says, "Mom wants to talk to you about the laxative incident." And I thought that's a funny line to hear from your kid. So I take that idea and I sit down and I write it out as a script. Panel 1, there's the action. Zoe walks up to Hammy, who's reading a comic book or something, and Zoe says, "Mom, she's talking about the laxative incident." They both crack up in the second panel. In the third panel, Hammy trudges off to his doom, smiling, and Zoe says, "You're so dead." And he says, "At least I'll be going out with a smile on my face." That's what I send Rick, and then he does this pencil sketch from it, and will send it to me then to look at, and I make sure that everything's spelled right. I'm not a great copy reader, unless I have any suggestions, it's 99.5% of the time exactly how it should look. And then Rick goes in and does the finish, and then it comes out kind of like this. I want to talk to you about the laxative incident. They laugh. Bam. And that's how you do a comic strip. These ideas, like you saw the first page, I do in these spiral-bound sketchbooks, field sketchbooks, and when you do it for 20 to 25 years, they stack up and look like that. So this represents sketchbooks from about the time, I would say, about the time that Zitz started. I started keeping these hard sketchbooks instead of regular pads of paper. And so the same thing we do with Zitz, only a little different. I do a pencil sketch. So in this case that I'm going to show you, it's not like we usually do it. This is one where Jim had a great idea for a strip, and he sent me this little sketch. And it's almost ready to go, and I really don't have to make any changes at all. But since that's why I get paid to make changes, I make changes. So I simply rearranged a couple things. I moved some stuff around. I figured it'd be funnier if Jeremy found his phone in his room than in the kitchen. So I changed some dialogue and sent it back to Jim. And he did some sort of magical stuff like this. "I can't find my phone." And Walt says, "Use mine to call yours." And he does, and he hears it ring, and he hears it ring from the living room, and he hears it ring from the kitchen. There it is in his room, and he tosses Walt's phone into the pile of room stuff. And Walt's back, "I can't find my phone." up until that point, I was spending 8 hours a day in the chair thinking, and I realized after 8 or 9 years of that there seemed to be sort of stagnation of the material. It just wasn't as funny to me as possible. And I asked my editor, Brendan, what do people do? And he said, well, have you thought about using a gag writer? And I found several wonderful people. Rena Piccolo wrote for me for a while. Todd Clark writes right now, Rich Domowski writes for me, and a guy named Jim Kraft, who used to write most of the Garfield books. They submit ideas to me. I look at them and I pick out words that I think are funny or punchlines that I think are funny. Nothing ever comes out of the end of the machine looking like it came in that way, but I find that it's very helpful for me, for my mental health, and also I think it's my responsibility to the audience to put out the funniest, precious ideas possible. And I may not necessarily be the guy who's the funniest and precious that day.
Totally get it. So you guys, should we talk about our creative outlets from our creative outlets? Want to do that? Why don't we take the next couple minutes? The things you do when you're not at the drawing table. When you stand up, then what?
Well, I don't have a giant pipeline of other kinds of work, but I do lately have been making paper mache masks. Took a simple class from a friend after discovering a mask museum in Mexico, and I just fell in love with these. So yeah, I've only made a handful, but do you have some there? Yeah. So just kind of riffing on these things, making up critters. And it's been really cool to work in 3 dimensions. After sitting there working as I showed you, just tiny little blocks, as most cartoonists do all day long. Get your hands messy and gluey and use other materials and stuff. So that's been my most recent passion. That's how you begin is with clay.
What about you? Who's next?
I write in my spare time. I also play guitar and drums.
I do piano.
Occasionally with old guys and play geezer rock. I play drums for myself. My favorite song to play on drums is Jackson Brown's song because it ends with the audience cheering and applauding. So I always feel when I finish the song. It's always a great day.
Here we go.
Okay, and I mentioned about the studio. I'm a painter as well, and so I didn't have any pictures, any of the current stuff. But when we lived on the ranch, I did paint a lot of stuff that I saw there. So this was one of our guys branding cattle one time, and then of course everybody used to paint a chicken. I did that. So that's what during my animal period, and that's what I did then.
One more thing. I thought I'd ask each of you guys, what is something that you wish other people knew about the job that they may not know, or if there's anything that you've learned from your 1,000-odd years cartooning that you would like to impart to the audience?
The guy on the left should speak first in the panel. I have to learn that over and over and over again when I'm writing Baby Blues, especially because I have to draw this in my head. And boy, Rick really enjoys it when I start these characters in a static place, and the guy on the left speaks first, and the second panel, the guy on the right needs to respond. He has to fly his drone up and draw them from a different angle. And, so yeah, that's important.
I think there was kind of a myth or ethos when I was learning cartooning that this has to be your personal vision alone. You draw every line, you think of every word, you never let anyone else's ideas work their way in, because this is supposed to be a personal vision. And wonderful strips have come out of that. I think Calvin and Peanuts, and those were great examples of really living inside one person's mind. But there are a lot of ways to do this art form, and I wish people could experience what I consider one of the real gifts of my life, which is to sort of share a brain with a really smart and funny guy like Jerry. We have come to the point where we can kind of complete each other's sentences, and I'll call him, he'll send me a bunch of strips, and I'll call him and say, there's just one here that I think might have a problem, and he'll say, that one with Dad, and I'll say, yeah, that panel, the second one, and he'll say, yeah, I was thinking about that, and he'll propose another word with no more, communication than that. It's like we both can see what this is, and it's nothing more than a word that needs to be tweaked, or a gesture that's slightly off. And I don't think I've ever experienced that kind of, call it communion with someone on a professional level like that. It's a really beautiful experience, and I'm really grateful that collaboration seems to be becoming a more acceptable way of doing a comic strip, because I think Zitz is better for it.
It works for us, both these guys.
I have to, ditto on Jim's last point. The fact that, this collaboration, you do develop this shorthand. We do have a way of communicating with each other about various things, what to do and, improve or change something. And, I think with most people, they would not understand the sort of things that we say about, how to change an expression or whatever. It's, like I said, it's a shorthand we have between us. And the other thing I would say, as far as what I wish I had learned before I got into cartooning, was learn to draw horses and bicycles better.
The other thing you should know about, I wish I had known, is that if you get a partner, you have to split the money with them. Beware of that.
I'm going to take any questions from the audience. I know we only have a little bit of time, but I want to remind people, or tell people, in fact, that these guys have some things that they're going to sign at the back after the event, and so you're welcome to go back, and they're happy to sign things. So, are there any questions from the audience? Yes, Betty.
Hey guys, thanks for watching.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
You guys all have a good one, man. Latest.
Peace.